Call this regularly scheduled meeting of Bridgewater Town Council to order. The agenda has been circulated. There are no additions or deletions from the chair. The revised agenda, sorry, yes. There are no more additions or deletions. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda, the revised agenda is circulated.
So moved.
Seconder? Seconded by Councilor Thorburn. All those in favor signify in the appropriate manner. Opposed, motion is carried. Announcements. I wouldn't think there's going to be a ton of them since we met last Monday. I do have three. I was very pleased to make some remarks Wednesday, February the 17th at the Best Western Plus. St. Mary's University hosted an event for St. Mary's alumni. I think a lot of the people speaking weren't alumni. Some of us had one course from St. Mary's, some didn't have any. It was a look at how the university could assist the community in economic development. Elizabeth McLean-Weil spoke on the work being done by Now Lunenburg. There were students from the IB program in Parkview there, Chamber of Commerce, business people, and certainly a number of St. Mary's alumni looking at opportunities that St. Mary's could provide to the community to assist with our economic development. And I think they're going to host a second meeting, and I think they're looking at a closer relationship with Now Lunenburg. Then on February the 18th, in Halifax, for the Atlantic Police Association All-Stars versus the Maritime All-Stars. It's a fundraising event for the Atlantic Police Association that our police association down here has been heavily involved in, so I was pleased to take part in the opening ceremonies, as I have for the last 3 years. They raised a significant amount of money for the two special causes this year were the Children's Wish Foundation and the Food Bank. I think in excess of $12,000 was raised for those two very worthwhile entities, and certainly pretty good crowd of, I think, between 500 and 600 people, it looked like to me, that were there. Had a grand time being entertained. Being a hockey fan, I'm always amazed that they get older, they get slower, but they're so smart with the puck that they make the young guys look rather foolish at times. And on February the 19th, there were four of us at the Bridgewater Elementary School for the science fair. We served as judges, and certainly it's the first time I've done the science fair. Being a social studies background, probably a little bit out of my element, but utterly amazed at the project that the students did and how mature they were being able to explain to you as a judge what they were doing, why they were doing it, and the implications it could have for the community and whatnot. So really enjoyed doing that, and kudos to the elementary school and the organizing committee for hosting that and allowing us to be part of it. Are there any other announcements? That's what happens when you have that short week. Presentations. We do have one presentation night under our achievement policy, and we're always delighted when we're able to recognize individuals or groups for success they've had in a variety of disciplines, sport, culture, and so on. And so tonight we're very honored to recognize an individual, and I'll ask the Deputy Mayor if he would do the honors.
Yes, Your Worship, and I'd ask that this is quite a lengthy resume this young man has, so I'm going to try and read it all as well as I can. Andrew Schneider, who I believe is here this evening. Andrew is a fourth-year business administration student at Acadia University and co-captain of the varsity soccer team. He is a 2015 CIS Academic All-Canadian, which is awarded to student athletes who participate in varsity sports and maintain a GPA above 3.5. Andrew is also a 2015 CIS All-Canadian for his performance in sport. The CIS awards 22 players from all of the university teams across Canada for performance in soccer. They award 11 players as first team All-Canadians and 11 players as second team All-Canadians. Andrew was named a first team All-Canadian in 2015. He is also a 4-time Atlantic University Sport All-Star and former Conference Rookie of the Year. Congratulations, Andrew, and thank you.
And best of all, he's an axeman.
Is he
Had to get that in.
Andrew, are you a Montreal Canadiens fan?
This is getting better all the time, Andrew. It's getting better all the time. Section 5 of our agenda is delegations. We have 2 formal delegations. Each are allotted 10 minutes to present to council. And the first delegation is Diane Kroll and Stacy Goodsoe. The Sexual Assault Services, Lunenburg and Queens County. News Services for the South Shore. Welcome.
Thank you. We have resources to leave with you. I'm Diane Kroll. This is Stacy Goodsoe. And thank you very much for giving us this time and opportunity to explain to you a new service for the South Shore for Lunenburg and Queens County. Sexual Assault Services for Lunenburg and Queens has been a while in the making. Certainly Stacy and I have been doing the work of helping coordinate the services since the summer of 2013. We were hired at that time by Second Story Women's Center to explore what services were already happening in Lunenburg and Queens, what was needed if there was nothing happening, which was the case, or very little. We had about 8 or 9 weeks to kind of gather our information, do a needs assessment, come up with recommendations. It was a very rushed time and it was extremely busy. And during that time, we had the opportunity to establish a group of agencies and organizations within Lunenburg and Queens that would be considered frontline service providing agencies for victims of sexual assault. We were a little bit fortunate, or a lot fortunate, to have already had that group somewhat established, although Stacy and I did add to it later on, because of previous work done by Second Story Women's Center's larger project called Be the Peace. And I'm sure that you've had presentations from that group. So we came and we set out to do our needs assessment through research, through talking with others throughout the province that were working in the area, through looking what was available across Canada, if not North America, and more importantly, through individual and agency interviews here in Lunenburg and Queens counties. So we interviewed as many organizations and agencies as possible, not just those that were frontline, but those that would have some capacity to work with a victim down the road. We interviewed victims who came forward to share their experiences with us and to let us know how they perceived a service that would best suit them. All of this was compiled and put into a report. The report is on our website, and it's called Acting Together. And it certainly does give us a unique picture of our community here on the South Shore. It's one of a kind. There aren't very many other reports that have been, I think, quite as detailed as this one about life here in Lunenburg and Queens, and what we were told was needed to have an all-encompassing service. So the funding ran out. The government changed, as usually happens, and we didn't know quite where we were going to end up after that. Harbour House, which was one of the partners at the table at the time, came up and said, well, look, we need to continue this work because we now have the recommendations, but it's just going to go in a file and sit on a shelf somewhere. And that's not what we want now. We really want to engage and have a service. So they applied for funding to the federal government through Status of Women Canada. Surprisingly, it got accepted, and I say that because Be the Peace was funded by that pocket of money as well. And it's not usual for 2 projects to be funded at the same time through that pocket of money, but I think it just goes to show the importance of the work that was being done. So, and then the new Liberal government at the time stepped up and said, well, we think that this work is also extremely important. It's a timely topic, as we all know at this point. And so they too funded Second Story Women's Center to bring Stacy and I back and to engage Elizabeth Bailey as well to help us out. And I say this piece because there are other areas of the province that also got some funding, but not as much as we have here. So over the last 2.5 years, going on to 3 years now, we've had about $230,000 to develop this service. And it does set us a bit apart in the ability to do so, and in the time and energy that it took Stacy and I to bring everybody together and have this collaborative service that's been established. The service was launched in July of 2000, last summer, July 15. And Stacy's going to talk to you about how we went about doing that after we developed our mission statement and our goals and objectives and certainly our terms of reference. That was kind of almost the easy work, if you will. The harder work came when we began to develop our protocols, which meant that each organization had to explain to each other how they were going to be part of the service and what they were going to offer.
So we had the advantage of these two pots of money, but we also had the advantage of a really collaborative table of partners. Included were representatives from the Health Authority here, the Bridgewater Police, RCMP for Queens and Lunenburg counties, Second Story Women's Center, Harbour House, Sexual Health Center, Lunenburg County, and Victim Services. So these were the core protocol contributing first responding agencies, and they all created an agency-specific sexual assault protocol, which is in the document we shared here. In addition to that, we had a lot of supportive agencies, allied professionals, interested community members, and survivors who had the opportunity to provide input to developing protocols and aspects of training. Some of those were Emergency Health Services, Schools Plus, Community Services, the Crown, Social Regional School Board, Family Resource Center, Family Support Center, Public Health, and a number of individuals. So importantly, the protocols were developed within a very local context. We were very clear that we wanted to do something that made sense here, and that's what has been engaged. So guiding principles were the foundation of all the protocols, and those were that they be survivor-centered, trauma-informed, and locally based. The Health Authority trained 10 nurse practitioners as sexual assault nurse examiners, and they work out of all 3 hospitals in the 2 counties. They work in teams of 2 and serve all victims of sexual assault, male and female identified, who are 16 years of age and older. They also work, so they provide the initial medical care as well as collect all the time-sensitive forensic evidence. They work with a number of mental health staff at the 3 hospitals who are on call as well. And one of those mental health staff is assigned to each victim of sexual assault who comes in via the emergency department. So that's another very locally created, unique aspect of this service model. So those mental health staff are there for that initial, immediate emotional needs of the survivor as well as ongoing follow-up if that's needed. They can also provide referrals to other alternative or community-based supports like staff from Second Story or Harbour House who provide trauma-informed support to all female identified victims. Harbour House also has a 24/7 toll-free support line for all victims of sexual assault and can arrange for free transportation for victims from anywhere to a hospital. And Sexual Health Center provides specialized information in STIs, pro-choice pregnancy options. Victim Services provides support for victims going through the criminal justice system. So that's the medical and supportive side of things, and of course there's the legal side of things. We were really lucky to have representatives from Bridgewater Police and the 2 detachments of the RCMP who were just extremely proactive and willing to do the work that needed to be done to create sensitive, trauma-informed investigative services, but also worked with health to create an interagency protocol that allowed for anonymous reporting. So historically here, if victims were seen medically locally, and there were only a few that were, most went to Halifax, it was immediately necessary to open an investigation with police, which we learned was a huge barrier for victims, understandably, because they weren't sure if that was the right course of action for them, or they needed time to decide to heal, to get their medical needs met, as well as emotional support. So the police, the RCMP, and the Health Authority created a protocol that allowed for the transportation and storage of anonymously provided sexual assault exam kit information. And this was a big game changer for here in order to provide that appropriate sexual assault service model. Anything else?
Well, just to emphasize that we are the only service in Nova Scotia, so it's something that we can, I think, really be proud of here on the South Shore, that offers the uniqueness of the two trained SANEs, the sexual assault nurse examiners, as well as a professional health counselor. The other two services in the province in Halifax is Avalon Centre, and then there's a sexual assault centre in Antigonish, don't have that availability of the mental health person. And we've been told by our SANEs and our mental health colleagues that this really, at a time of extreme upset and trauma, has really assisted the victims that we've seen thus far. So it was a unique bit of collaboration through our health authority and our SANEs and justice and so on. But it's been a very unique experience. Though it seems like a long time, since 2013, it went very quickly, and I think that we can all be quite proud of the collaboration that's a part of our community here. It certainly wouldn't have happened this quickly and with this much meaningful success in its presentation to victims without that wonderful arm of collaboration that all the agencies that were truly involved presented at the table. So Stacey and I would often go to our meetings and feel a bit anxious because, of course, we always went with an ask, right? We're not here to ask you for any money tonight, so we're okay with that. But we always went with an ask to these major agencies, and usually the money did involve, the ask did involve money. And so, of course, we'd get a bit anxious about the whole thing and think, oh, we're going to be here a lot longer than we thought. And inevitably, the meeting would end earlier than we had planned, and the ask would have been, leave it with us and we'll see what we can do. And upon the next meeting, it would get done. So it was a really wonderful experience to be able to be part of the collaborative work. And we are hoping to continue some of it, and particularly the education and preventative pieces. And right now, we're wrapping up this section of our funding and giving presentations to all the councils, and also out in the communities. So if any of you belong to groups, church groups, any type of group that you feel that a short presentation about the essential pieces of the service would benefit your community, especially rurally, please get in contact with us, and we can come and do that. And we can make it a whole facilitated discussion of over an hour, or we can try to make it 10 minutes, as we're trying to do tonight. So, thank you.
Are there any questions? Councilor McDonald.
I may have misunderstood, but it sounded like you mentioned victims 16 and over. Is there a separate service for children, or sorry, I shouldn't necessarily call them children, youth,
Yeah.
under 16?
So the SANEs here are trained in adolescent. So they see anyone 16 and over, and anyone under 16 would go to the IWK for specialized pediatric SANE care.
Okay.
Yeah, but they can have follow-up mental health care here.
Okay.
Councilor Graves.
I may be naive, but how big of a problem is sexual assault here on the South Shore in Nova Scotia?
It's something that's really underreported. So I think, the statistics are that I think 90% of cases are not reported. We did collect a certain number of what we could find for local stats, which are difficult to come by. And I can't recall those numbers off the top of my head. But it's since, just to give you a picture, the Health Authority, when we first did our needs assessment, thought that they had seen approximately 5 cases in 5 years. Since services were established here, we've had 5 cases in about 5 months. So it still doesn't seem like a lot, but the more people know that services are there and that they're survivor-friendly and accessible, the more, unfortunately, will come forward but get the help that they need.
And those 5 that we are saying are not including 16 and under.
This may seem strange, but I mean, I've seen it on TV. like on W5 when they've done things with nursing homes and things like that, and there's been cases of, sexual, do you go to places like that? Do you do talks? I mean,
There I go. Yes, it's one of my passions.
Okay.
Is trying to assist older adults.
yeah, because it happens, I know, even in their own
Yes.
homes and things.
Yes, and the other thing that happens with older adults, just as a very quick aside, is that for those who are experiencing dementia, sometimes as they go back into their memories, they'll remember maybe an incident where they were sexually assaulted, and they've never told anybody. So they've never even told a family member. So their family members are actually saying to them, "Don't be silly, mom," or "Don't be silly, dad. That never happened to you." And so there's that whole boondoggle of not believing and not assuring someone that they believe what they're saying is the truth. But it's our hope and our desire to go to any organization or even groups or just individuals and talk about the service so that people understand that it's there, it's accessible, it's anonymous if you want it to be, but the help is there now. And hopefully with more knowledge there'll be less need for it, but we predict that it will be quite used as we go out and talk about it more. Yeah. I don't know if that quite answered your question.
No, but I mean, you do, that is part of it, the
Totally,
whole.
yes, yeah.
Perfect.
Councillor Thorburn.
Just a quick one, male versus female. If it's a male victim, does the same protocol take place?
Yeah, the SANES are trained to see male and female and all genders.
Yeah.
The support services at mental health are for anyone as well. Family Services of Western Nova Scotia provides support to any victim. Second Story and the Harbour House only provide support to female identified victims, but they do still make up the majority of victims. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Appreciate it very much. Obviously, a very important topic, and I'm glad you were able to come and give us an update, which will then be picked up by the community, and hopefully some other groups will take advantage of your offer to come and speak to them as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Just remind councillors as well, could you make sure your microphone is in front of you when you're speaking, or it's not going to be picked up, and somebody's going to be sitting at home trying to figure out what you're asking. Our second delegation is Ida Scott and Dan McLean from the Bridgewater Development Association.
Good evening, everyone. The slides that we're going through are the presentation that the council does have. It's a shorter version, but it is going to be on the screen there for everyone. Tonight we are here for the funding request for the 2016-2017 fiscal year of the BDA. Our request is for $151,612.42. This is an ask for a pre-budget approval of 50% of this amount so that we can continue to operate and deliver the work that the BDA does. A few highlights from 2015-2016. BDA has worked very hard at developing a showcase for Bridgewater event to attract different developers, site selectors, and businesses as a business attraction activity. This has created a lot of buzz in the industry of other towns and areas trying to figure out how we've done such a great job at showcasing our town. We've also organized a community picnic to identify and recognize the successes that we have had with input from the community to form the basis of an ambassador package. Throughout these two, the showcase and the picnic, we've had great support from the community, the council, and mayor. We've also created a business attraction package, which will be distributed to businesses, developers, and site selectors to encourage them to attract business to this area. With that, we have had much success in trying to locate small, medium, large-sized businesses to come to the area. We get lots of feedback back all the time from that. We set up a task force to deliver the BRE project, which was also in, we've done that in 2011? 2006 was our last one, and very successful project that is underway again. Ida is now going to speak through the next few slides that we have. The highlights partial list of the plan for the next year.
So as Dan mentioned, that was an abbreviated list of some of the projects last year, and we have a partial list for 2016-17. We want the BRE Business Retention Expansion Program that's ongoing right now. We want to tabulate the results, roll out those results, identify actionable items, prepare a plan for action, and establish an implementation team to help implement activities, issues identified by businesses. We want to host the 4th Showcase Bridgewater event, and each event we have found has been more successful than the previous one, and we hope to continue that trend for 2016. And during this upcoming year, we will oversee the completion of a feasibility study for an incubation/innovation center in Bridgewater. We want to organize another community picnic celebrating success and create community pride, launch the ambassador program, which will market the town. And as Dan had mentioned, we had really good input from the mayor and councillors who came. Mayor MC did a lot of other things that day, and councillors barbecued under the guidance of Bill McGinnis.
Don't give him any credit.
They
please
almost
don't.
fired him at one point, but no, don't encourage him.
No.
But we had over 400 people show up that day, and the large posters we had prepared that celebrated success of within the community. We have, those were 3 feet by 4 feet. We've had them put on the foam core and laminated, and they'll be hung at the Lunenburg County Lifestyle Center initially, and then moved to other community places within the community, so it will continue to remind people of how good they are in this community. We have been working on trying to get to the point of having a vote for the Business Improvement District in the proposed downtown bid area. And we want to organize that vote for this spring. If it's a yes vote, then we want to help establish the bid, the Business Improvement District. We will continue to distribute the business attraction package to site selectors, developers, and businesses. And as you know, we have that on a thumb drive and easy to give to businesses, and we've had a number of requests for that already. One of the things that we had on our plan, strategic plan for last year, and we will do this year, is meet with town council and senior staff to ensure we have a shared and workable vision for the town, so that we're all pulling in the same direction. I'll give you back to Dan.
Thank you, Ida. Just in closing, I would like to recognize the Board of Directors. We do a lot of things within the community and have done for years, and I find that one thing we don't do well is promote ourselves as volunteers and the expertise that we have behind the board and executive. We have a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, community members, people that have been very successful in the community, and I think it's a time that we start to recognize those people more. So I just wanted to say that. And we also have different volunteers too that aren't the executive and aren't on the board, such as the community picnic, the BRE, and the BRE project has over 45 volunteers with that project alone. So I think it's very important that it shows the success of the BDA being able to attract such high quality volunteers. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Ida. Any questions to Dan or Ida? Actually, the request is on first item on the main part of our agenda, so you won't have to wait very long at all. I appreciate the update very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Second part of the delegation is for anyone in the gallery who would like to address council. You have up to 2 minutes. Hearing none, the minutes of Sick Mose. The minutes of January the 25th. There is a need to make a clarification there. Jessica, do you want to just give an overview of what we have to
It's just
correct?
that the three phases of the implementation of the downtown, which we had been calling phase 1A, 1B, and 1C, there was a renaming that happened, and so, thanks, sorry. So the phases of the implementation of the downtown project were named 1A, 1B, and 1C. So when we came to you in January for a budget pre-approval of phases 1B and 1C, the tender documents actually ended up renaming those phases to 2A and 2B. So it's simply a renaming of the phases. Everything stays the same.
There's a suggested motion. Is someone prepared to bring that forward? Councilor Sorburn?
I would move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater revise the approved minutes of January the 25th, 2016 to reflect the correct phase names for the downtown plan as outlined in document 16-044.
We have a seconder. Seconded by Councilor Mailman. Any questions? It's just the wording correction there. All those in favor of the motion signify in the appropriate manner. Opposed? Motion is carried. Planning items. Section 7, 3 items there. The first one is the development agreement. I lied, Dan. I'm not going to make them stay. With council's permission, can we move the correspondence for action up so that VDA don't have to hang around for the rest of our meeting and just deal with that request? Hearing nobody say no, I guess. So we'll deal with that now. So there is a request from BDA to approve that budget, or to receive that budget and to provide 50% of that budget as pre-budget approval.
I move the Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater pre-approve funding in the amount of 50% of the request amount of $151,612.42 from the 2016-2017 budget.
Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councilor Graves. Mover, seconder, wish to comment?
Well, from what I understand, they need the money to keep the operation going, and if we can provide them with the 75% now, 50%, I mean, 75, I was thinking the money, 75,000. Anyway, it will keep them going until we finally decide when we do our budget, which won't be until May or maybe even June. We'll say May.
Yeah, they've got a lot of stuff on the go. You can't operate without uncertainty, so.
Any other questions, comments? Ready for the question?
Question.
Question called. All those in favor of the motion signify in the appropriate manner. Opposed? Motion is carried. I think that's the only thing we had to do.
There's another item at the bottom.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's another item for
Yeah.
the BDA at the very bottom.
Yeah. You prepared to bring that forward?
Sure.
Okay.
So I'm requesting to move it up in the agenda? Is that,
So we're dealing with all their requests.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've got to find it, and then I'll bring it forward. I think I'm getting there.
11.3. No, okay, hold it, then we're talking two different things. Were you talking about the third motion that's there with regards to the budget? I'm still in the budget.
Oh, no, sorry, I was talking about the
Okay.
one that was further down on the list, and we didn't move up to allow them to leave.
Is the other motion that's there is referring the request for funding for the balance of the 16-17 budget to our budget deliberations. So it's a formality, but we should do that.
Okay. I can do that. I move the Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater refer the request of funding for the 2016-2017 for the BDA as contained in document 16-030 to the 2016-2017 budget deliberations. Should I have said the final 50%?
Yeah, the final 50%. Balance.
Balance
Balance
of,
of the
okay.
budget. Do you have a seconder? Seconded by Councilor Thorburn. Any further comments? It's straightforward there. All those in favor?
Can I
signify-
ask
Question, go
Question
ahead.
before, just welcome wagon, and I read in there somewhere about the welcome wagon. Can somebody enlighten me as to where we're at with that? I had some residents talking about it, and I see it in one of your presentations.
The welcome wagon doesn't have anything to do with the BDA.
I read in there somewhere.
I'm not sure what you're referring to, but we did the welcome wagon, put information in there, but it's years since we've done it.
Yes, I'll come down and see you then. We'll
Okay.
talk about it. Okay.
You're welcome.
Ready for the question?
Question?
Question been called. All those in favor of the motion signify in the appropriate manner. Motion is carried. Yeah, I now know what you were referring to. There was
I
another
was
item there with
moving
the
too
Bridgewater
fast.
Development Association, which was 11.3. So council permission will move that one up as well and deal with all the items pertaining to development and association at one time. And that's the updated agreement, which has been vetted through staff and through the BDA. So you have the final recommended document there. So wish of council.
Would you like to have a motion? Sure. Yes, I move the Town Council of the Town of Bridgewater approve the agreement between the town and the Bridgewater Development Association Agreement as contained in document 15-065B, and that it be duly executed and recorded.
Seconder? Second by Councilor McDonald.
And that's just an update from
Yeah,
a
a lot
long
of
time
this-
ago, it looks like to me.
A lot of corrections and wording had to occur. You ready for the question?
Question?
Question call. All those in favor signify in the appropriate manner. Opposed, motion is carried. Now we'll go back up to planning items. 7.1 is the development agreement application 3062815 Nova Scotia Limited for 140 North Street. The document number is 16-002A. Welcome, Jimmy Allen.
So many of you will remember we've had a development agreement application from Mr. Carey, who's in the audience this evening, so welcome. The application is to construct an office use on the second parcel behind his existing commercial use on North Street. So just to give you some context, this is North Street here, and there's two commercial office uses here on this one parcel, and then the parcel that we're talking about is behind. It's adjacent to Seasons Drive, but the primary access would be from North Street. So the proposal is for a 3,800 square foot building. It will be a single story. The property is zoned comprehensive residential, and which is, as you know, a flexible, primarily residential use zone, but it does permit office uses and some small scale commercial uses by development agreement. So just to give you an idea of the zoning, the property here is indicated by a star. So most of this area is zoned residential, but it's adjacent to this sort of highway commercial use along North Street. And there's quite a bit of commercial activity, as you know, along North Street, north and south. So like I said, the primary access for this proposed development will be from North Street. So you can see here, this is the existing driveway and the existing commercial uses. So the proposal is to develop the property in behind, and you can see they've started to rough in their driveway. And this is sort of a close-up of their driveway. The access would be through here and then up behind. That's where they would be building the new building. There wouldn't be any access to Winburn Avenue. The proposed parking would be for 15 vehicle spaces and 2 bicycle spaces. So this is the site plan. North Street is over here, and this is Seasons Drive. So some key things that we've been talking about with respect to this site plan are the setback here from the western property line. This is all residential to the west of the parcel. So originally the proposal was for a little over 14 feet here separation, and we've asked them to increase this distance to 20 feet, and they've agreed. The primary access would be up this driveway here, and the parking would be adjacent to Seasons Drive. Just to give you an idea of the architectural style that they're looking for, very similar to the existing commercial uses that are on the property now. So it's kind of inspired by residential uses with the dormers and the steep roof. So we held a public participation meeting on February 3rd. We provided notice in the progress bulletin and also sent notice to property owners within 30 meters of the subject property. 4 members of the public attended. 2 were residents of the area around the subject property, and 2 were representatives from Parkview Community Lifestyles who own Season Drive. The feedback from the public participation meeting was generally positive. However, there were a few concerns that came forward. Lighting was a concern. It's adjacent to residential uses, so it's not surprising that lighting was brought up. Also, privacy screening was another concern that came forward in the public participation meeting. And also, one concern that we heard, particularly from the owners of Seasons Drive, is how we would deal with stormwater on the property. Currently, what happens is the property is vacant now. It used to be the site of Mr. Carey's residence, but it's vacant now. And the stormwater drains to a ditch alongside Seasons Drive, which is privately owned by the same owners as Seasons Drive, and they're not keen on the idea of having more stormwater put into that ditch. So what we did is we went through the concerns and we compared the application to the policies in the NPS. So policy IN6 and RDA2 deal with applications of this type. So we went through the process designated by the NPS. We asked for comments from the town engineer, and we provided copies of the proposed development agreement to the town engineer and to legal counsel as well. We also looked at zone standards that for similar commercial areas, which are not binding on this application, but they do provide some guidance on what the development agreement might look like. So, like I said, probably the biggest issue that we dealt with was what to do about stormwater, and eventually what we decided was to ask Mr. Carey that stormwater from the subject property to be drained into the town's stormwater infrastructure, which is existent on their adjacent property under the existing driveway. So there won't be any new stormwater being dumped into the ditch alongside Seasons Drive. Lighting is controlled by the land use bylaw, but because we had some concern at the public participation meeting, we thought we'd tighten up those requirements a little bit. So we just made sure that there's a provision that any lighting on the property needs to be directed towards the property and not onto adjacent properties, and also that it can't be bright enough to create a nuisance. We're also asking the property owner to create a privacy hedge along the western boundary of the property, and also between the parking lot and Seasons Drive, so it will be screened from view for the residents who live on Seasons Drive. There was also a concern from the public participation meeting with respect to traffic. So if you remember, the primary access to this parcel will be from North Street, but the site plan includes secondary access from Seasons Drive. So you can see here the subject property is indicated by the red star, and Seasons Drive is a private street. So the town owns the drinking water infrastructure under Seasons Drive and also owns a right-of-way over Seasons Drive. What the development agreement does now, it gives permission for the property owner to create that secondary access to Seasons Drive. It doesn't require it. However, when speaking with the building official, he's concerned that it could be required for safe fire truck access to the parcel. So right now we're saying basically the two property owners should be able to work out for themselves whether there's going to be secondary access to Seasons Drive. However, the town does have the right to give Mr. Carey the right to have that secondary access. So if, when they're going through the building permit process, if the building official says, you need to have that secondary access for safe fire truck access, then he does have the right to create that access. So there is an existing driveway here to Seasons Drive that was created when Mr. Carey's residence was located on the property. So with respect to signage, the land use bylaw doesn't permit off-site signage. So because the subject property doesn't have any direct frontage on North Street, and that's going to be the primary entrance, it's a little bit complicated because they can't place a sign there legally under the land use bylaw. So what we suggested to Mr. Carey, and he's cautiously planning to do that, is he can consolidate those two parcels. So then this existing parcel with the two commercial uses that are there now will be consolidated with the vacant parcel. So then he'll be able to place some signage on North Street. So just to clarify, if that happens, that parcel where this new building is going to be located will still have the same zoning, and this development agreement will still apply to this development, even if that consolidation goes forward. So as I said before, we've also asked that the separation distance between the building and the property lines of the properties along Winburn Avenue be increased from 14.5 feet to 20 feet. That's reflective of the requirements in the land use bylaw for similar uses adjacent to residential uses in other kinds of zoning. So we thought that was a good guideline to use here. And the way we've structured the development agreement now, the only thing that would require a substantial amendment to this development agreement is use. So any of the other things in here could be changed by council through just a simple resolution. So signage, lighting, access, any of those things can be changed without going through the whole public hearing and public participation meeting process again. So staff are unaware of any outstanding issues. So we're here to ask council to schedule a public hearing on this matter for the evening of council's regular council meeting on March 14th. And we will do the required advertising and make sure that everybody knows that's going to happen.
Thanks, Jamie Ellen. Is there any questions to Jamie Ellen first? Councilor Thorburn?
Just one, Jamie. That seems to be a fair distance from the road. Is there any consideration for a fire hydrant for up in that area? Or just feeding that off of North Street?
It would be from North Street is my understanding. The fire inspector has had the opportunity to have a look at the site plan and hasn't indicated any desire to have a fire hydrant.
It may be nice to have one up there.
Yeah.
Maybe talk to the fire chief, building fire inspector.
I'm not going to say that there is a fire hydrant straight from the building on Seasons Drive.
That's not a great hydrant on Seasons Drive. There's no water from that, I don't think. Yeah, the first one up here is water. You're right. Okay. Yeah, the first one does. Yeah, no, it does.
Any other questions to Jamie Ellen? Councilor Tanner?
Just two quick ones, Jamie Ellen. Why does the property have to be consolidated again? Explain it to me.
Well, let me
Seems
just
like
go
a
back
headache.
and see if, sorry for the flipping, but if I go right back to the beginning, and I'll show you. So this is one property here, and this is North Street, and the subject property here is a separate property. And under the land use bylaw, the property owner could not have off-site signage.
Oh, okay.
So he couldn't place a sign on this other property on North Street. And since that's, I mean, the applicant and sort of everybody wants that to be the primary access, so it makes sense to have signage down here.
Despite the same owner for both properties?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Part two, I guess, is there's already an established driveway onto Seasons Drive, as I
Yep.
understand it, right? So why the stickiness?
We've had correspondence from the owner of Seasons Drive that they're not favorable to the idea of increasing traffic on Seasons Drive. They're concerned about liability issues.
Okay.
I would note that there is an easement for the benefit of this parcel giving right-of-way to use Seasons, and also the town has right-of-way, so,
Okay.
there's no,
Yeah.
yeah.
Councilor Malin?
With that driveway on Seasons Drive, didn't I notice that the park owners wanted access if there was an emergency or something like that?
Yeah.
So, like, if you're not gonna allow them to, if they're not gonna allow them to use the driveway, are they planning on having boulders there or something, and then if there's an emergency, getting somebody up there?
I'm not sure what the intention would be with that existing driveway, yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm just thinking, in that park, they have no way out.
No, I know.
You know,
It
and-
is really to everyone's interest to have a secondary route into this area in case that's blocked for whatever reason, but yeah.
Yeah, I would think it
I
would
don't
make
know, I didn't
sense
ask.
to allow it so that
Yeah.
they could have access that way too if there was ever an emergency. I've always wondered about, how could they build something without having, two ways of getting that out? Look how many people live in that area.
Yeah, I agree.
Councilor McDonald?
If the property's consolidated, it could then be subdivided again, and it would be a process similar to this. There would be no holdups, no. there's
No,
nothing.
well, the subdivision is even easier than a DA
Okay.
process, it's just the the reverse of the consolidation application. So that would be something that Nick would handle, that it wouldn't really come back to council.
Can I just interject? Because it would also, they would need appropriate street frontage, so Nick can speak to the.
It couldn't be re-subdivided
Yeah.
easily without street frontage because it doesn't abut a public street. So that's to answer your question. If it's consolidated, there really isn't an opportunity to recreate what is existing today.
'Cause this wouldn't be a legal lot now. You couldn't create that lot on Seasons
Okay.
Drive on a public street now. It was created under previous.
Seasons is private.
Any other questions to Jamie Ellen? Hearing, or the question, or someone prepared to bring a motion forward?
I move the town council for the town of Bridgewater refer the application for a development agreement to permit the developer to construct a new building to be used as an office at 140 North Street in accordance with document 16-002A to a public hearing to be held at 6 p.m. on March 14th, 2016 in the council chambers of Town Hall and authorize staff to carry out the necessary advertising.
Seconder? Councillor Graves? Any further comments?
Great-looking buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ready for
Good
the
work.
question?
Question.
Question to call. All those in favor signify in the appropriate manner. Opposed? Motion is carried. 7.2 is the terms of reference for the Open Space Advisory Committee. Amy Ellen, that's you as well.
Yeah, so I'm just asking council to create this advisory committee to support the process to develop our open space network plan. So we're really excited about getting this process underway, and particularly the first job of the advisory committee will be to help us develop a community engagement plan, which we're hoping to get underway in the spring and summer. So it would be great to get the committee established and find some great enthusiastic members of our community.
Someone prepared to bring a motion forward?
I would move that town council for the town of Bridgewater approve the terms of reference for an open space plan advisory committee as presented in document 16-038 and authorize town staff to initiate an invitation to serve to populate the membership of the committee.
Seconder? Second by Councillor Thorburn. Any comments on, I think terms of reference very straightforward. All those in favor of the motion signify in the appropriate manner. Opposed? Motion is carried. I did put a call out to councillors who might be interested in serving as the council representative on that committee, and I do have a motion there recommending the appointment of 2 councillors up to October 31st, so there will be new appointments, so if someone's prepared to bring that motion
Yes, Your
forward.
Worship, I move the Town Council of Town of Bridgewater appoint councillors Jennifer McDonald and Wayne Thorburn to sit on the Open Space Plan Advisory Committee for a term ending October 31st, 2016.
Seconder. Second by Councillor Tanner. All those in favor signify in the appropriate manner. Opposed, motion is carried. And 7.3 is communications and event planning agreement with Blue Nose Coastal Action Foundation for sustainability programs. And that is... Boy, that was timing. Welcome, Leon. And you're on.
I'm presenting this item now?
Yeah, you decided
I
to
thought I
come.
was answering.
Surprise, surprise, eh?
I don't even have my nice tie on. Not that I ever wear a tie.
I almost said it.
I don't think he has one.
You got one. So good evening. So the item before you today is a draft agreement between that's been drafted by staff that would allow for the purchase of communications and event planning services from a local nonprofit charitable organization, the Blue Nose Coastal Action Foundation, a organization that the town is quite familiar with in many of our projects. They've been involved in a variety of town initiatives, and the reason this is coming before you today is because we have quite an interesting convergence of different projects with the Community Energy Initiative coming online starting later this year, and the need to expand our ability to provide programming for the Growing Green Festival coming into its 8th year of operations, and all good things tend to grow, and that's certainly been one event that has been. What you have before you is a bit of an analysis on the reasons why this contract has been created. And basically, the main reason that we've done this is we believe this is the best value opportunity for the town to acquire these services. If we were able to, for example, hire the communications and event planning support in-house as part of the community energy initiative, that's something we could rationalize, except we can do it, but our primary funder that we're going after, Green Municipal Fund, won't pay for in-house staff time. Hence the need from the beginning to outsource as much of the work as possible. It is a significant amount of work that's involved. There's a number of 100 hours involved with that project, we believe. And then also for the Growing Green Festival, planning that event requires at least 400 hours of a coordinator's time. So basically where we arrived at is we looked around and we said, who else could provide us with some of those services? We know that being able to keep the work on kind of a nonprofit basis tends to help with the fees involved, and we had a number of conversations with the executive director of the Blue Nose Coastal Action Foundation, and we came to some sense of a working budget for acquiring these services for them. They are actually quite interested in using the other, what would be about half of a position that would be created through that for their own projects and programs, but like us, they wouldn't have the money in-house to bring a qualified full-time person in anyway. So we've set it up as a service agreement. There are several exit clauses for the town, including a 30-day, that's it, sorry, got to run, all the way to a number of controls in place in case the performance isn't where we hope it to be. So we think it's a fairly safe agreement. As part of it as well, there's a clause in there that says what we'll do if we don't get the full GMF funding we had anticipated for the Community Energy Initiative. So there's an exit clause, March 31st, 2017, because the bulk of the work actually happens after that anyway for that initiative. So we understand that this is a sole-sourced proposition that we're putting in front of you. The purchase for this initiative is permitted under our purchasing and tendering policy, though, because even though the total size of the purchase exceeds $25,000, it is being done under the alternative procurement practices. It's being sourced from a nonprofit organization, and we're able to provide a clear rationale for that purchase. And I'll remind Council that Council has given pre-budget approval as well for the BCEI, for the town share of the BCEI part of the work. So we are moving forward with the overall initiative, assuming we have to go ahead. So I'm happy to answer any questions regarding this staffing arrangement, or I should say service arrangement.
Yeah. Any questions to Leon?
Good for you.
Thanks. Someone prepared to bring a motion forward?
I move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater endorse the recommendation of staff and approve the Communications and Event Planning Service Agreement with the Blue Nose Coastal Action Foundation as contained in document 16-041 for the town sustainability programs for fiscal years 2016-17 and 2017-18.
Good seconder. By Councilor Phelan. Any comments?
No, good job.
I like the price.
Ready for the question?
Price is good.
Yeah.
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor of the motion signify in the appropriate manner. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thanks, Leon.
Thank you.
There's no correspondence for information. We dealt with the correspondence for action. Item 10, reports and recommendations. 10.1 is the use of credit cards for tax bills. Document 16-036. Welcome, Don.
Good evening. So the town quite regularly gets requests from taxpayers to pay their taxes via credit card, and if paid during the regular manner using a credit card, the discount fees the town would have to pay. which represents quite an expense and rather unfair to the taxpayers who, pay cash or check or debit. So this particular company is used by a number of municipalities in Nova Scotia, is also by the CRA, and the payments are made online. The customer pays the 2.5% fee, and it's very clearly, when they go on to pay their bill, it's very clearly identified that they will be paying the fee. But it's certainly, because of the fee, not something we would necessarily recommend, but it is an option, another payment option for customers.
So we're prepared to bring a motion forward.
I would move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater direct staff to make the necessary arrangements to allow payment option via credit card as outlined in document 16-036.
For the seconder. Second by Councilor McDonald. Very straightforward, providing residents another option.
Yep.
Councilor Tanner.
Is the fee the same for all users? I read an article that it might actually be lower for some users. Do we know that for sure? Or?
I can't tell you that for
Okay.
sure. I'll check it out, though.
Okay.
My understanding was that it was the same for
Okay.
all users.
Any other questions, comments for the question?
Question.
Question has been called. All those in favor of the motion signify in the appropriate manner. Opposed, motion is carried. 10.2's recommendation of the Grants to Organizations Committee, Grants to Organizations fourth quarter intake period. And I guess, any comments you'd like to make, Patrick? This is the
Just to perhaps summarize, Your Worship, for our audience watching at home, the Town of Bridgewater has 4 grant intake periods through the grants to organizations process each year. The last one for this fiscal year ended on February 1st. We received 5 applications, and the committee met, reviewed them, and we're making 3 recommendations tonight, which include $500 for the ACC-IB Maritime Conference, $500 for South Shore Community Justice's Community Dispute Resolution Center, and $500 for the Bridgewater Junior Curling Club's upcoming tournament event.
So there's recommendations there from the committee. There's 2. So we're prepared to bring those forward.
I would move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater endorse the recommendation of the Grants to Organizations Committee and award fourth quarter grants as follows. ACC IB Maritime Conference, an operating grant of $500. South Shore Community Justice, Community Dispute Resolution Center, an operating grant of $500. And Bridgewater Junior Curling Club, an operating grant of $500.
We have a seconder. Second by Councilor Thorburn. Any comments, any of those raised? Ready for the question? All those in favor of the motion signify in the appropriate manner. Opposed, motion is carried. And there's a second motion for your consideration as well.
I move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater endorse the recommendation of the Grants to Organizations Committee to allocate the balance of the 2015-2016 Grants to Organizations account in the amount of $2,013 into a reserve to be added to the sum allocated for grants to organizations during the 2016-2017 budget process.
Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Tanner. Any comments on that request?
No.
All those in favor of the motion signify in the appropriate manner. Opposed, motion is carried. 10.3 is the building inspection report for January. That's there for your information. You can see that over the last 3 years, 16 has been good as far as the number of permits. Obviously, in 14, while the permits were less than 16, we had some big ones. But certainly it is encouraging to see 16 has been a better year than 15.
Yeah.
So we're moving in the right direction. Are there any questions on that building permit? That's for your information. 10.4 is the recommendation of staff with regards to a council remuneration policy. And just a bit of a background. Historically, council would ask the CAO to do a review of council remuneration and make a recommendation to council every now and then about what the remuneration should be. There was sort of a practice that every November, cost of living was provided to council. It was always controversial. We felt it was difficult to have someone, the CAO, come in and recommend a 2% honorarium increase, and then we get to vote for it. So we felt there should be a better way of that. So in 2012, actually in 2011, council established an ad hoc committee made up of, I believe, one former mayor and former councillor and a number of citizens who gave us surveys to fill out about how much work we did and how long it took us and a number of things, and submitted a report which then set the honorarium scales for this term of council. We did not ever formally adopt that process or protocol. We endorsed the recommendations, but never then made that as a policy. So what this is doing is trying to bring into focus what council had sort of agreed to back in 2011 going into 12, try and make it, and then that would be the policy going forward. This also then allows the council of the day, which would be this council now, to determine whether we want to trigger another review. So if we did not want to trigger a review, that would mean that whatever the remuneration is now would carry forward for the next term. Mr. Smith, anything you wanted to add in that? Did I come close to getting it?
Oh, you got it pretty good.
So I'm prepared to bring a motion forward.
I move the town council for the town of Bridgewater endorse the recommended revisions to policy 64, annual remuneration.
Glad I wasn't the old one.
Yeah, adjustment, and for council members as presented in document 16-028 revised, and that it be enacted as policy for the town of Bridgewater.
Second it. Are there any questions or comments?
Will there be a formal vote before the next election? Or if it's just not brought up, it just...
This approves
The policy.
This approves policy, and I guess what it indicates, if no one brings forward a motion to trigger a review, that automatically means that the current remuneration carries forward for the next term. And I don't think I'm speaking on term when that is a desire the council has, is that things are frozen as they were in 2012. Ready for the question?
Question.
Question to call. All those in favor of the motion signify in the appropriate manner. Opposed, motion is carried. 10.5 is the proposed land donation to the town. Nick, welcome. This is becoming something I really like. Each meeting now, it's 2 meetings in a row, someone has offered something to the town, money, land. I like where we're going with this.
Yeah, so do I.
Nick.
All right, good evening, Your Worship, members of council. In 1989, LaHaye Manor Corporation, Town of Bridgewater, entered into a lease agreement to allow a tennis court to be built at the rear of the LaHaye Manor Corporation property at 58 Alexander Avenue. Property is known as the Fernwood House. At that time, to enter into a lease of that duration, a parcel had to be created through subdivision, and that parcel would be denoting the area of the lease. When the subdivision plan was registered, a note was stamped on the plan that said the newly created parcel was to be in addition to the adjacent Kinsman Field property. That wasn't the intention, and that never did happen. The deed wasn't transferred to the town. So that created what the Land Registration Office calls a problem subdivision. Presently, the LaHaye Manor Corporation are trying to migrate their property to the land registration system. There are many reasons why a property would need to be migrated. The Land Registration Office is not allowing LaHaye Manor Corp. To migrate the property because of this problem subdivision. Back to that note that was stamped on the plan. So that leads us to the request you have before you tonight, the donation of a parcel of land. So the request, of course, is that council accept title for the subject property, which is used as a tennis court as part of the Bridgewater Tennis Club.
Any questions to Nick? Seems pretty straightforward. Councilor Thorburn.
Would that tennis court then go through Parks and Rec for administration purposes where it belongs to the town versus?
It already does.
Yeah, effectively, it's already maintained by, well, in combination, the Parks and Rec Department of the town and the Tennis Club Association, I guess. It would just be a continuance of the current situation, yeah. So it's really just cleaning up a problem subdivision.
Okay.
Prepare to bring a motion forward.
I move that town council for the town of Bridgewater accept the offer made by the board of the LaHaye Manor Corporation to convey the parcel of land PID 603-83361, Alexander Avenue, Bridgewater to the town of Bridgewater, and that the associated costs outlined in document 16-035 be covered by the town.
Seconder. Second by Councilor Thorburn. Very straightforward. Cleans up. Councilor Tanner.
So Nick, does the town of Bridgewater now have to enter into another agreement with the tennis club? Or is it
I believe that agreement's
still
established.
established? It's
Yeah.
fine, yeah.
Perfect. Any questions? Councilor Donald.
There are no hidden problems with the land that may come up in the future, no contamination issues or anything that's lingering in the back of your mind anywhere?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I don't suspect so.
Just means if we strike oil, it's ours now.
And I'm holding him to that, no.
All those in favor of the motion signify in the appropriate manner. Opposed, motion is carried. Thanks, Nick. Item 11 is business arising unfinished business. 11.1 is Habitat for Humanity, request for donation of land. This is a public hearing. I don't have my hearing. Not planning, oh, good. Don't need that document. Yeah. So this is the request from Habitat for Humanity for a donation of land. We had looked at 82 and 92 LaHaye Street. Nick and myself and representatives from Habitat for Humanity locally and provincially toured the site and looked at it, and they took lots of pictures, and they're excited about the site. They're excited about getting going. As recently as yesterday, asked for the town logo so they can put it on a sign, so they can sign up. I said, well, you can't do any of that until it's approved, and you have to make sure you do that first. So they're excited about the potential. So it is before council now in a public hearing format to make a decision.
I would move that town council for the town of Bridgewater approve the donation of a parcel of land, 88 and 92 LaHaye Street, to Habitat for Humanity South Shore, a nonprofit organization.
Second by Councilor Mailman. Any comments? Councilor Tanner?
Perhaps I need a refresher, but why is it 88 and 92?
There originally
Two
was
lots.
2 lots.
Yeah.
92 or 88. One of them, a good chunk of that lot was taken off to allow for the turning lane coming down Glen Allen Drive onto LaHaye Street. So it was felt that the 2 lots together make not a bad lot, but you could never build a building on the 2 separate lots.
So,
yeah.
So do we consolidate that on behalf of Habitat for Humanity?
Nick?
It's my understanding that the town would cover the cost of the consolidation, which amounts to a $100 recording fee.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Ready for the question? All those in favor of the motion signify in the appropriate manner. Opposed? Motion is carried. 11.2, Debbie Tobin, the Executive Director, has requested a proclamation for Epilepsy Association Nova Scotia Purple Day Epilepsy Awareness Month of March. Someone prepared to bring that motion forward?
I'm sorry, the proclamation was not received. I did forget that. It was not provided by the Epilepsy Association. It was not on their website.
Okay.
But you could declare.
We could,
the month.
someone's prepared to make a motion to declare the month of March as Epilepsy Awareness Month in the town of Bridgewater.
I would move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater declare March the Epilepsy Association, sorry, what is it? Can you say it again? Epilepsy Awareness Month? Okay. Declare March Epilepsy Awareness Month in the Town of Bridgewater.
Do we have a seconder?
Second that.
Seconded by Councilor Tanner. And remember part of the request was the purple bands, and those will be in mailboxes shortly. All those in favor of the motion signify in the appropriate manner. Opposed? Motion is carried. 11.3 we dealt with. 11.4 is the recommendation of Municipal Governance Review Steering Committee. You have a motion there that the committee has asked for us to approve, and I think what I would ask tonight is that perhaps I'll ask Deputy Mayor McGinnis and Councilor Tanner, who sit on that committee, on behalf of town, if they would like to make any remarks, and then we'll deal with whatever motion is made. Deputy Mayor.
Would you like, oh, well, I feel honored. Yes, thank you. First, the document, not sure of the number, it's the minutes of the last meeting. They are incorrect in a number of ways, but one in particular that should be amended and will be amended at our next meeting. It indicates that the town of Bridgewater representatives expressed concern with the current process and proposed a study of amalgamation is the only study worth pursuing. That's not in any way, shape, or form what was portrayed by myself and I think Councilor Tanner. What we wanted to convey to them is the committee needs a focus. The committee needs to, make a commitment to the process, which is not there in my view at this point in time. There's it's like casting a fishing line out in the water. You're hoping to catch something, and when you bring that in, you're hoping everyone enjoys it. That's not the case in this here. So they're looking to go look at alternative government structures with no commitment. If everything says yes, all the positives to that restructuring are there, there's no commitment to accept that from any council. So in my view, we're floundering somewhat. And I think we need a little more direction than that. It concerns me that we're being asked to spend close to $500,000, $510,000. Now, we're hoping to receive some money from the province for this, but it's still tax dollars. And so, to me, it looks like another study that no one is committed to, in which case we could spend $500,000 and wind up with nothing. Now, having said that, the thing that really concerns me personally with the steering committee in general, back in 2011, I believe it was, and I can be corrected with this, we hired a consulting firm of Marathon Resources. And they did an extensive study on what direction we should take. And out of that came something called the Municipal Joint Service Board, which has been active. It's been the town of Mahone Bay, the town of Bridgewater, and the municipality district of Lunenburg have bought into that, and we've been meeting regularly. And indeed, we've administered the waste site. We've now set up IT. We're in the process of setting up HR. And from that, there will be, I think, additional services included in that. And once you merge a certain number of services, i.e., there will be a point in time when you will ask yourself the question, well, I think we're amalgamated. If you merge that many services over a period of time, like over the next 2 or 3 years, that will happen if we continue on with this plan. And so we have that on one hand, and then we have this steering committee, which is looking at alternative forms of governance, which is not taking the joint service board model into consideration. So I have a concern that we spent a ton of money on consultants for that marathon report. We're being asked to spend another, the committee, $500,000. Our portion is not that. Our portion is approximately $175,000, which is roughly 34%. And in particular, the steering committee, there's no buy-in from the councils on the outcome of the steering committee. So I'm having difficulty understanding why we're participating. Now, Councillor Tanner, you may have a different opinion of that, but please elaborate if you do.
For fear of repeating exactly what you just said, there certainly is commitment to do the studies. So I think all the parties at the table, and I believe the councils will commit to do the studies, assuming there's funding in place. There's no commitment from the province as of yet to share any of the costs of the funding for the studies. And as Deputy Mayor said, there's nothing binding, whether it's truly binding or just a pure commitment from each of the councils that are party to the studies to follow through with the recommendations. And that makes me a little nervous given the price tag. So for me, I won't, at this point in time, be recommending we move ahead with the or voting in favor of moving ahead with the cost of the studies.
Councillor McDonald.
So when the topic of amalgamation was brought up, and the province was offering to do the studies for us with the third party and the right people to analyze the information and put it to work, I'll say, they were willing to do that based on a commitment that if it was a win-win-win deal, then we were to go forward with it unless we had some really big justification for why we shouldn't. Has there been any discussion with the province about whether they will even consider funding part of these studies, considering no one's asking for any commitment from the towns for any follow-through? And that was one of their requirements initially. Has there been even contact made to ask, will you even consider this?
I'll defer that to our CAO, Mr. Smith, but I don't believe there's been any official ask that I know of.
No, you're correct. There hasn't been anything official.
Not even
in writing.
preliminary?
There's a rep from the province at the meetings, but again, he can't
Right.
act without something in writing.
Any other comments? I'm allowing latitude, so I want some discussion before we go.
For me, I see the process perhaps moving forward that we go to the province, we ask for funding, and we understand what the hooks are or what the tie-ins are for that particular funding, and then that at least allows us to understand, okay, what are they in for, what are the hooks, and maybe it will help councils, the 4 councils, understand what they need to commit to going into this process. So.
I'll make some comments. And I've struggled with this one. I think we had an opportunity. I don't think it was fast tracking it, but we had an opportunity a while ago to start the URB process, which I believe was going to just facilitate the studies that needed to be made to provide you with the kind of information that I think as a council you would want to have to make the best decision possible, and the kind of information that I think our residents are going to demand that we're able to answer. And the province was on side, so I thought that was a reasonable approach. I thought it would allow us to be able to make a decision that would be effective with this coming election if we chose a new governance model and things were positive. That's gone by the wayside. So my belief now is that the earliest there could be a different governance model now is probably 2020. I don't think you're going to have an election in 2016 and then decide you're going to have another election in 2018 and then go back to the election again in 2020. I don't think that makes any sense. So I think we've got time. The hurry up, I guess, is gone because we've already missed that boat. I know what my end game is, and that is that we examine the way we do business, both as a council governance side, the number of councils in Lunenburg County, number of councilors, number of councils. Do we need all those? Does that make sense? Is there a better model for delivering the service? Look at the services we provide. Is there a better way of doing it? And that's what, to me, the studies were going to demonstrate to us. So I'm reluctant to pull a plug because that shuts everything down. And while I'm not happy with how it appears, how slowly we're going, we still are meeting, we're still having dialogue, and I think that's positive no matter how frustrating it can be at times. But I guess one of the suggestions I would put out there is I think it would be reasonable to defer a decision, indicating that there's I call them a partner, and I think they are, and that is the provincial government has been very open and vocal about their support for communities looking at working together closer and whatnot. And I think a valuable piece of information for me before pulling the plug or saying yay, nay, is a dialogue with the provincial government, with municipal affairs, saying, look, here's where we are now, here's what we're looking at. Are you part of this process with us? What are you willing to do? What are you not willing to do? What requirements do you have? What conditions do you want to put in? We're reading continually about things that are happening in Pictou County. I read a document this morning that if someone presented that document to the residents here, I'm not sure how the residents wouldn't say, what's the holdup? Why don't you guys get going? This certainly seemed to be a win-win-win situation. And at first I was really frustrated with the lack of commitment. But I guess at the end of the day, if the studies are done and they demonstrate that A is what we should be doing, and the council says, this council or any other council says, yeah, I know what all the studies say, but I'm just not going to go along with it, then to me the ultimate hammer is with the electorate. And that's where I think pressure has to come to bear, is once the facts are known by the electorate, that they push hard on what direction they want their council to take. So I'm caught. I would prefer some more time to dialogue with the province, and that would get my support quickly. If a different motion comes up, I can't tell you now what I'm going to do. Deputy Mayor McGinnis.
But there's one major fly in the ointment. 3 towns, the town of Mahone Bay, the town of Bridgewater, Municipality District of Lunenburg, have an agreement, joint service agreement. We are merging services. That is not on hold. We are doing that. Okay? And we are, to my knowledge, continuing to do that. But we have this committee which might come up with something totally different that could undo that. I'm not saying it will. The possibility is there. We need that clarified. Because that document was prepared, and no one likes to use this word, but prepared that eventually you would see amalgamation. You would fall right into amalgamation. If you merge all the services, you don't need 3 municipal councils. You don't need, all due respect, 3 chief executive officers and all those nice things. And so that's ongoing. And that, I think, is in the process of even speeding up because we've got key pieces in place. IT, human resources are there now. So, we're ready to roll on this. And as a result, is that going to be put on hold until this committee decides, well, no, we're never going to amalgamate. We're recommending something else. What happens? And that's where I had the problem.
And my response, I guess, would be, not to make this the Bill and Dave show, it would be presumptuous for me to say that I think we are going to regionalize all the services. I think we established a mechanism and a process to regionalize services. And I believe our council said, and we're willing to look at all our services. Didn't say we're going to regionalize all our services. We're going to look at them. Because to me, you regionalize a service because it makes sense to do that. One model that does exist is the Ontario model, and I'll use the region appeal, where there's appeal regional board that looks after certain regional services. Police being one, solid waste being one.
Community services.
Community service. So, but there are still Brampton and the small communities still have their councils to do other things. So I'm not automatically saying we're going to regionalize services and we're going to regionalize them all, and that's going to mean we all wake up one day and say the only thing not regional is us. It may, but to me, we're going through a process that evaluates services and determines whether it makes sense for the partners to regionalize that service. And sometimes my gut tells me things, but I want to see the documentation that makes sense for the taxpayer. Because at the end of the day, that's what I think the taxpayers want. They want good services delivered in a cost-effective way that they can afford. And that's, to me, what the process is. We're looking at how do we do that. Part of me says 40-something thousand people, 30-something counselors. With technology and the mobility today, my gut feeling is that seems to be an awful lot of governance people for that small population. So you go through a process and analyze it. And that's why a good part of me is saying I'm reluctant to just automatically now walk away from the table, because that shuts down everything. I would rather fire a warning shot across the bow maybe, but I hate to sink the ship right now.
Well, the way that I see it is that the Joint Service Board really seems to be efficiently running well with the three partners. Lundberg is not a partner of that, although Lundberg is part of Lundberg now. So that's another partner that's out there. I kind of agree with you partly that I think we should explore all options before we actually pull the plug. Because once you cut something off, it's going to be hard to get it reestablished. And I think our two reps have spent a lot of time there doing a great job. And we've got to get some clarification from the province and see what they're going to bring to the table. If they're not prepared to do any funding, then I'm prepared to walk, basically.
Councilor Grace.
So just using the region appeal analogy, there's 1.1 million people in the region appeal, probably 25 people that run government, elected officials. In regards to the payment, I have zero interest in using town of Bridgewater taxpayer money to put money into a funding study that was going to be provided by the provincial government. But to your point, in regards to having a conversation with the provincial government, we've had a couple of meetings, but we've never had one together. And you're always advocating that if we're going to make decisions as a region, we should have a council meeting or a meeting as a group. So I would certainly support having the four councils meet, having another presentation by municipal affairs, lay out everything on the table, so we all understand the same thing, and from there I think you can make a good decision. I'll also add that today is January 2016, and 20 years ago this year, the region of Queens made a decision to amalgamate, and they've had a lot of economic hits, but this particular community is extremely resilient. They're growing, and they're doing a good job. And I'd just like to point that out, because many times we've talked about amalgamation, but we've never included our closest neighbor and friends in the region of Queens to talk about their experience, and maybe they should also be invited to this to co-present with the municipal affairs. So,
Councilor McDonald.
I would agree with the direction of having a more joint discussion. There are lots of questions that I have. We've discussed the fact that there may be some services that some of the municipal units are not willing to look at for even joint services, which we're currently engaged in. And there are some things that they're probably not willing to put on the table that we are. And I really think in order for these studies to even be successful, we need to know that starting point, where we are willing and where we aren't willing, because there's no point in spending money on a study and realize after the fact that, oh, this municipality actually wasn't interested in, trying to merge this service, or they aren't interested in looking at staff numbers, or they aren't interested in looking at open spaces. Who knows what it could be. But there may be things that they have a strong focus on protecting, and the rest of us may be looking at studies around that. So I think the joint conversation could really answer a lot of those questions and get us all in the same starting place, at least, if we are looking at the possibility of studies, and I really want to know where the province stands. So I would move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater defer the decision, a decision on the recommendation of the Municipal Governance Review Steering Committee, and direct staff to schedule meetings between the province of Nova Scotia, what department? Municipal Affairs, and the participating municipal units for further discussion as to future direction of what? Help me with some wording here. I'm missing something in there that kind of solidifies what we're looking for.
Where I'm uncomfortable is, we're in an era of political correctness and whatnot, but it's the reality we live in, is I'd be more receptive to the deferral and communicating that to the reimagined committee, and requesting that they facilitate.
Okay, yeah, that does make sense.
A meeting with municipal affairs and all the partners. In other words, we've got that committee, and we'd like to explore that direction before. Yeah, I think some people probably are prepared to say nay tonight. I'm not. I really would like to know where the province stands and all this. If they're not willing to support a certain process, then I guess they should let us know that. And I think they've, sat up in the back a little bit, and I know it's, you guys work it out, and we'll support you. Well, I think we need a better understanding of what they're willing to support and not support.
Refresh.
I think we have a motion on the floor somewhere.
Is that motion now there?
She made a
I don't
motion.
know if I know how.
If I refresh, will it come closer? Yeah.
Okay, so that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater defer the decision regarding the Governance Review Steering Committee and advise the steering committee and request that they facilitate communication with the provincial government regarding funding.
Would it be defer the decision defer the decision, I'm trying to get reference to 16-043. So we're deferring the decision
Oh,
regarding the recommendations of the Governance Steering Review Committee.
as outlined in
document
16.
16-043, and advise the steering committee and request that they facilitate communication with the provincial government regarding funding and direction.
Right, I think that might miss including all the municipal units. So if, with the provincial government and participating municipal units regarding funding and future direction?
But we're asking the steering committee facilitate it. Steering
Right.
committee is all the units.
Okay, as long as that's clear.
But all the councils have to hear the same words from the same person at the same
Right.
time.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to get in
Yeah.
there, is we want to be invited, the rest of us.
This is not the committee,
Okay.
this is all the councils.
Yes.
Right.
The
Okay, I see
four
what you're saying now.
councils, all members,
Yeah.
and then once and for all. So we're all on the same page.
So that they're facilitate a meeting of all councils with the Department of Municipal Affairs.
Right.
All member councils?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. With Department,
Municipal affairs?
with Department of Municipal Affairs. Or could we put the appropriate, municipal affairs, it's under municipal affairs.
I'm not sure, do we have a second to that motion?
No.
We're still working on the motion.
Getting there.
Okay,
Refresh
I
again?
think it's there. You want to try, you want to read that again then, Jennifer? We'll see in a second.
Okay. Okay, I would move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater defer the decision regarding recommendations of the Governance Review Steering Committee as outlined in document 16-043 and advise the steering committee and request that they facilitate communication of all member councils with municipal affairs regarding funding
And direction.
and direction.
We want to know what the real game plan of the province is, at least to some degree. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councilor Graves. Mr. Smith?
Can I suggest we throw in the word and constraints with funding? Because,
We throw in the,
What was that?
And
Conditions.
constraints of funding.
Conditions of, or?
yeah,
Conditions and constraints of
and
funding?
related to constraints. In other words, what are the strings attached to the funding? And then it's clear.
Am I allowed to amend my motion before,
yeah,
not
we're-
before it's
we're-
voted?
We're still playing with the motion.
But we seconded the motion, so now we have to
Oh, no.
Not
put an
really.
amendment on the floor?
We're- Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. We can bend, eh?
Right.
So the
So
intent
make
of the
the-
meeting is to find out what the provincial government is willing to do funding-wise. What are the restraints or the restrictions they have on the whole process? What they're really looking for.
In a presentation, the four councils.
Yes.
Funding conditions and constraints and direction?
Yeah.
Right. Yes,
So we have-
please.
Yeah. So we have a mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor McGinnis.
I would prefer the four mayors meet with municipal affairs. You'd probably get a better answer. I'm not sure in a public meeting with four councils there, you're gonna get much of a commitment on anything. So
This is-
that's the first thing.
But it's not about the commitment, it's about what municipal affairs can do for us. So he's just throwing information our way. So we all hear the exact same thing. So many a time, people are saying one thing, another person is saying the other. It's just to get, everybody gets the same information, the same, that's the way I see it.
I guess the blunt question I have of this council, are we prepared to spend money on additional studies without knowing any outcome?
No.
No.
I'm not-
Yes.
Okay, so that's the key question here. And unless we are, we're wasting our time, because I can't see municipal affairs just giving us $500,000.
No one's saying they're going to. We're definitely not gonna know if we don't have that dialogue. And I think I know what you mean by, when we use the word outcome, that sounds like we know what we want. So unless everybody agrees to what we want, before we do the study, I don't know what the outcomes are. If I knew what the outcomes were, I wouldn't spend 1 cent of taxpayers' money to do anything. That's the whole premise for doing the studies, is to provide the background information that's going to demonstrate to all of us that the direction we should be moving in is A, B, C, or the status quo?
That's the
Councilor
commitment we was asking back in the spring. We didn't get it. We didn't even come close to getting that commitment to proceed, or we'd have been proceeding by now. So let's make it quite clear that I'm not prepared to spend our taxpayers' money to do a study if all their partners are not going to agree to the conclusions that the study gives us.
And that's a debate for another day, I guess. But Councilor McDonald?
The way I see it is that we did a study. We're moving in a direction based on that study. You know, if we want to change face and do something different, fine. But I am not prepared to put money on the table if there's no solid direction and no good reason for that change of face. And I think in a meeting where everyone's getting the same information and asking questions and all hearing the same responses is the opportunity to put that on, you know, fire that warning shot across the bow and make that clear that, you know, we're not throwing money out there. There has to be some real value for it because we've already been down this road and we're already moving in a direction. If we're going to change face, there's got to be good reason.
We know that part of the issue we're in now is because the three councils have a different understanding of the process. So Mahone Bay heard one thing, we heard something very similar to Mahone Bay. MODL heard something different than what we heard. And that becomes the difficulty of when we don't meet together. I need to hear what Mayor Downs says. He needs to hear what I say. We both need to hear what municipal affairs say. So we both heard the same thing, and we can seek clarification. I think when we do it independently, I sat in MODL's as Deputy Mayor and Councilor Tanner, their presentation, and I'm not saying anybody's giving bad information, but it was not the information that we were provided.
Great.
And so when you're making decisions based on their understanding, I might have voted the same way they did, based on their understanding.
That's where I am. I don't want to come out of this with bad information. Quite frankly, I'd have been ready to vote against this and pull our members from the committee based on what I've read in the report and recommendation. However, I don't want to walk away from this unsure that I have all of the information, unsure that we've had all of the discussion necessary for me to shut that door so quickly. So I'm going to kind of give this one last attempt at it, and then I'm ready to walk.
Just to clarify, I was at the same meeting that you three were too. I was over
Was there
at
four
that
of us
meeting
too?
tonight. There's four of us there.
Where's that?
MODL.
Oh.
Ready for
Any
the
other
question?
comments? Ready for the question?
Question.
Question called. All those in favor of the motion signify in the appropriate manner. Opposed? Motion is carried.
That was begrudgingly.
Yeah, he was for.
Smoothly waste your time before.
It's all right. With due diligence, Bill.
Yeah.
New business,
I'm not-
12.1, wind turbine potential venture. Mr. Smith.
Yes, last April, we had a presentation to us by Minus Energy regarding wind turbine project. That was on, and then we had a discussion session regarding the topic. Since then, over time, the municipality of Chester has retained Minus Energy to do some studies, and up till now, there's been 2 in-camera sessions regarding details on the potential project. As it stands now, what's before you is a motion. We are one of a number of municipal units that can explore this opportunity. There's right now, I believe, 7 municipal units that took part in these in-camera meetings. And the first step is the motion before you, up to $15,000 would be, there's four units that are guaranteed to be in this for sure, and there's another 2 or 3 that are going through the decision making. So that will cover the 60,000. What the 60,000 does is a wind assessment, negotiating an arrangement to tie on to the interconnection, generation interconnection approvals. And then, that will be phase one. Before we have to make a decision if we want to enter into a intermunicipal agreement and make a significant investment in a project like this, there'll be a business plan during that time. There'll be a business plan fully developed from the information coming from the review. And that will be probably by September. So at that point, it will become a public decision. But until then, because of private company and information remaining in negotiations, it's in camera up to there. So there are, for the public, there's a document that was presented to us a year ago and a report from staff regarding that. So that gives pretty much all the background information that we can make public at this point in time.
Councilor McDonald.
Don, were you able to run any debt ratio scenarios?
Yes.
How'd it look?
And in fact, if all of the revenue is taken into consideration, the debt ratios do improve slightly. But I've sent something off to Municipal Affairs to find out how they will view the debt ratios, because, where we don't actually have that revenue yet, how do they look at it when they're, because you have to get the temporary borrowing resolution in place. You have to, your debt ratios have to fit in order to get the temporary borrowing, but you don't actually have the revenue at that point. So I haven't heard back from them, but I've requested information.
So, may I?
Are we now delving into things that?
Not really.
Okay, okay, I want to make sure that if we get into things that are still confidential, that we don't get ourselves in trouble.
I wouldn't go beyond, basically what the document here is 15066, which the press would have anyway, and then the presentation by Minus Energy a year ago, and it talks about the basics. One turbine is 6 million, generates 3 megawatts. They're estimating somewhere between the site, if they secure a site, could be between 40 and 60 million. A project of that go. At the time, they mentioned a 10% return on the dollars investment going in. That obviously will change over time as they get the wind assessments, procure contracts and stuff like that. That's the part that's confidential. We've had some presentations in camera, but which was more detailed than this. And before we make a decision, council makes a decision, that detailed business plan and all the background will be in a report to allow council to make a decision whether or not they want to go forward with the project. So essentially, our share of 60,000, which could be 10, 12,500 or 15, is essentially seed money to determine whether or not we want to make a commitment to this project.
I'm good now, thank you.
So will the study give us a final return, confirmed rate of return? Or
Yeah.
even at the study point, is it still?
It will give, it'll give all the factors. Number one is what it costs to connect up to an SPI. The customer we would sell to them basically a price.
Okay.
The wind assessment, which basically says the efficiency in terms of turning the into power. Those are the factors, and what the turbines actually cost in Canadian dollars now. So all of that information is what we're paying for in phase one in order to determine whether or not it's not worth it or not. So it's not going to guarantee an exact return, but it will certainly give us an indication of if it's reasonable or not. But again, it's always a professional judgment.
Councilor McDonald.
Has the URB worked through their regulations and all the things that they were working on? And if so, did any big red flags pop up? Like nothing that would just blow this out of the water, would it?
They'll be examining the outcome of that, but there's basically several options in terms of selling power. One is the customers, which is what the URB process is, or we can sell direct to other municipal utilities, and that doesn't require going through a UARB.
Right.
And
Through
the
UARB.
million-dollar question, I think, some people ask why they go to the municipalities. Well, it's because we get the favorable rates from the Municipal Finance Corporation. We're stable. And the other question that comes up is what happens if Nova Scotia Power undersells us? Well, they have to, their profit margin has to be at least 9% because that's what their shareholders require on any investment. So we're anything under 9%, we should be okay.
So prepared to bring a motion forward.
I would move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater commit up to $15,000 to participate with other municipal units to assess the feasibility of investing in a wind energy generation project.
Seconded by Councilor Millman. Any further discussion? Ready for the question?
Question?
Question.
To call. All those in favor of the motion signify in the appropriate manner. Opposed? Motion is carried. That brings to a conclusion tonight's...
No. Could I just bring one more topic up? Not a topic, it's the additional comment on the one we just previously talked about.
No.
Well.
I
Deputy Mayor.
Well, no, two things. One, what if the other units say, no, we don't want to meet with municipal affairs, we've committed to this, that's one. Secondly, we have a meeting on March 3rd that we have to report back to whether we're going to assist in the funding or not. And obviously, I don't think we are at this point in time.
We've deferred a decision. And if they all say no, then we'll be back here to make a decision what we're going to do. Okay, there's no more business in this meeting, but an in-camera meeting will be held immediately following this meeting to deal with matters under the Municipal Government Act, Section 22(2)C, personnel matters, and 22(2)C, contract negotiations. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Meeting stands adjourned, and we will reconvene next door.